We all know that the future of the automotive industry is headed in the electric direction, and over the last decade or so, we've witnessed big companies like Hyundai innovate new technologies, and even completely new manufacturers like Tesla shake up the industry with new electric vehicles that are completely different from anything we've seen before. However, while they may be the future, one thing that we can't shy away from is the price of these EVs. For the average person, most of these vehicles are completely unaffordable, which is clearly a massive problem. Well, that wasn't until China completely shocked the industry with its selection of affordable EVs that undercut literally every Western model on price. In this video, we'll check out the best Chinese EVs under 10 grand. For years, the Western world has overlooked Chinese vehicles, and for a time, there was a justifiable reason for doing so. These Chinese vehicles basically just copied top Western models but compromised on quality and performance for price. However, once EV technology started to develop, these Chinese manufacturers started to become much more prominent. Chinese vehicle companies like BYD began working on EV tech years before any Western company, and this, along with other factors like government subsidies, has allowed them to produce cars at a fraction of the cost compared to Western models. In fact, there's a whole range of vehicles under the $10,000 price point. So, let's check some of them out, starting with the Wuling Bingo. The Wuling Bingo is actually the work of a joint venture between Western Titan General Motors, Chinese manufacturers SAIC and Wuling. Prices start at just $8,500, and for the price, this is a pretty impressive EV. The Wuling Bingo is a very small four-seater hatchback that's just 12.96 feet long, 5.6 feet wide, and 5.2 feet tall. It makes up for this snug size with a very innovative interior that makes the most of every square inch of space. For instance, drivers can opt for an inflatable mattress in tube back seats, which can turn the Bingo from a city car to a camper in just a few minutes. The rest of the interior feels much more expensive than what you're paying for. For instance, there's a 7-inch instrument panel and a very nice 10.25-inch infotainment screen for the driver, which makes you feel like you're driving an entry-level Tesla. Wuling hasn't skimped on powertrain quality either. With the best battery pack equipped, the Bingo will generate 68 horsepower and can go for up to 206 miles on a single charge. Now, those aren't particularly impressive stats, but considering that this car is meant to be a city driver, you won't feel underpowered as long as you stay within residential roads and are always fairly close to a charger. The Wuling Bingo has enjoyed massive success, particularly in China. In April alone, 16,383 Bingos were delivered to happy customers, and this popularity is only growing. And thanks to that joint venture with GM, we may even see Wuling break into the Western market within the next few years. Now, if you thought the Bingo was cheap, you're in for a real treat. Wuling's Hongguang Mini EV is even more affordable, costing just $5,000 new. To put this into context, it would be cheaper to buy a Hongguang Mini EV than add Apple CarPlay to a Ferrari. So, what do you get for your money with the Hongguang Mini EV? Well, to be honest, you're not exactly getting a lot of car for the money. The Hongguang Mini EV is described as a mini EV, but even that's a bit of an understatement. At just 2.9 meters long, the Hongguang Mini EV is one of the smallest cars on the road right now. At least you won't have a problem parking it. Although, getting more than one passenger inside will be a slight struggle. Don't expect to be going anywhere in a hurry when driving the Hongguang Mini EV. It maxes out at just 62 miles per hour. But with those tiny wheels, driving about 30 miles an hour feels dangerous. Braking is also pretty underwhelming, especially at higher speeds. As for range, the Hongguang Mini EV tops out at 106 miles with the best battery pack equipped. It'll take you a whopping 9 hours to recharge this from 0 to 100% too. The Hongguang Mini EV isn't currently available outside of China. Nevertheless, it recently hit 1 million sales and is only growing in popularity. For many people who live in Europe and the US, this car might not seem appealing. But there is definitely a small market here for drivers who only need to get to work and back in the city, for first-time buyers, or even older drivers who just want something reliable and easy to park. Baojun is the sister company of the SAIC GM Wuling joint venture and has recently released its own mini EV called the E300, which starts at just $9,154. The E300 has a very quirky design, but definitely fits into the mini EV city car aesthetic. The CEO of Baojun mentioned that the two-tone design will appeal to younger customers, which suggests that they're targeting the first-time buyer sector with the E300. Like the Hongguang Mini EV, the E300 is all about value for money rather than performance, so don't expect to go past 60 miles per hour, drive for more than 100 miles or so before needing a charge, or have enough room for more than 1 or 2 passengers. But again, for the right people, the E300 is just fine as a little runaround car. And when it hits the Western markets, it will likely compete with the likes of the Citroën army of Ego Life, which is expensive in comparison. Kandi is one of the only companies on this list that has successfully broken into the US market with its K27 Mini EV. For the first 1,000 buyers, this thing will cost $7,500 post-tax credit. For everyone else, expect to pay around $12,000. With just 27 horsepower, the K27 will top out at 63 miles per hour and can only drive for 100 miles before needing a charge. Just like the previous models on this list, the K27 is not meant to be a fully fledged do-anything car. Even Chief Executive Johnny Tai explained that the K27 is essentially a step up from an electric motorbike. But for $7,500, can you really complain? The last car on this list is the Geely Panda. Now, Geely is a very big Chinese brand, producing a wide range of cars. The Panda is one of their cheapest, starting at just $6,000 depending on exchange rates. Like the others on this list, the Panda is pretty tiny, and you'd be very lucky to get more than 2 people in at any one time. It's also extremely boxy and kinda looks like it's been made from cardboard. Range is a very similar story to the other cars on this list, and after 120 kilometers, drivers will need to recharge the batteries, which will take several hours to complete. So, after looking at all these weird and wonderful EVs, you might be wondering how on earth they're so cheap compared to American, European, and Japanese variants. I mean, the down payment for a Tesla alone could be upwards of $10,000, so how are these companies doing it? Well, it all comes down to 3 things: production costs, price wars, and tax incentives. So first of all, EVs are a lot cheaper to produce in China than in America and Europe. Some experts are suggesting that electric cars built in China are about 40% cheaper to manufacture than EVs made in Europe, resulting in a reduction in production cost of about $10,000 per car. Now, this is huge. By reducing production costs by such a margin, these Chinese companies are able to reduce costs of buying significantly, thereby undercutting their Western rivals. Secondly, over the past decade or so, Chinese automotive companies have been engaging in a pretty serious price war, with each company trying to undercut the other. This has led to some models costing around 15% less than they once did, and is clearly a big factor as to why Chinese EVs cost so much less. Finally, we've got to talk about the tax incentives that the Chinese government is giving EV companies. For years, the Chinese government has been giving EV companies cash subsidies and tax breaks to incentivize and facilitate the production of electric vehicles. This pretty much led to the price war that I just mentioned, because the companies don't have to worry about that margin quite so much. The tax incentives aren't just for the companies though, they're also for consumers. Whenever someone buys an EV in China, they get thousands of dollars back from the government. Just look at the Kandi K27. That thing should cost $17,500 in China, but will actually only set a buyer back $10,000. The UK and Europe have employed similar measures, but not to the extent of the Chinese government, making it impossible for Western companies to compete on price. Ultimately, the Chinese EV market is offering more for the average customer than the West right now. Sure, Western EVs are more luxurious, have better range, can go faster, and are built better, but they also cost 10 times as much. Many people just want something that will get them from A to B and aren't particularly interested in going 150 miles per hour. For this segment of the market, the Chinese market is simply more appealing, and over the next few years, it's somewhat inevitable that Chinese brands will break into the Western market. We'd love to get your thoughts on these budget Chinese EVs in the comments below. Which one is your favorite, and would you ever consider buying a Chinese car? Give us your thoughts, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our recent analysis on whether the Chinese car market is overtaking. And on that note, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.